that I don't make any mistakes with the StreamYard. All right, the StreamYard thing. So we're live now, Sonya. Thank you very much for joining me for this very first Zero event, which is live streamed. It's, and I want to say live streamed. We've always done live events, but not streaming. Always private to the community, and then we record it. And if something really goes haywire, with tech,
we have
we just
time to edit stuff.
yeah, I just like the last talk that we did for XRMust, we just make an article out of it because something technically happened and we couldn't share the video. But thank you for your confidence.
Hope this one, yeah.
Exactly.
Let's hope for this one.
For your optimism that the second discussion that we have together publicly will go pretty smoothly. So welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining this live, and of course this will be shared later. I think we're actually streaming both to LinkedIn and to YouTube as well. So those who join us late can watch late. So I'm being joined today for this Zero events by Sonya Seddarasan, who is the co-founder of UPWorlds, and you can maybe see the upworlds.org link there at the bottom of the screen. And we're going to talk more about what UPWorlds is, but in a nutshell, it's a discovery platform and kind of a marketplace for people who are creating virtual worlds and maybe increasingly assets. And so Sonya, and having developed this community of people who build digital works in this what we call metaverse, but maybe before we just called it virtual spaces. Sonya is very well positioned to hear what these creators are responding to in terms of demand and what they're looking for in terms of support and tools and solutions. So thank you very much, Sonya, for joining us, and we look forward to hearing what you're hearing, what you're seeing, and what you're hearing. So would you mind just kind of giving us a quick intro into UPWorlds and where you're coming from?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so where does UPWorlds start? It actually started from a Patreon account. I was a designer. I'm a designer. And so the first thing that I wanted to do when coming into like the metaverse is to build. And from this, and the very first platforms that we actually tested this in was in Altspace, because back then, Altspace was already working with Unity, and a lot more people were building there. So from there, I get to meet a lot of other builders who were, and this was about 3 years ago, of course, and everyone was kind of in the same level about how to build, how to adjust, how what platform would be good for me, what's where is it going. So everyone was kind of starting in the same level, and I kind of have a position of being a designer. So I started a Patreon account to teach people about the how to build a virtual walls, but not only building functionally, but also designing them UX, but in 3D. And actually from this, and then we started getting a lot more builders, people there. Initially they were not builders, initially they were just people who were interested in building. And so we started having conversation, and we built a community in Discord. And then with that, we have a little bit of money that we gather from the Patreon. So we started building a platforms. So the idea of these platforms is that to give people a place where they can highlight their portfolio of a virtual walls. So to be honest, why did we even come up with this concept? Is because we see there's a lot more platform that are being born every day. Today we have I think today in UPWorlds we have about people from 12 platforms of Altspace, VRChat, Room, Spatial, Roblox, Horizon, so many, Mona, Renovi, a lot of them, and more are coming. And actually each one of these creators has their own goal, why do I want to build in the metaverse. Not some of them are doing it socially for social, some of them are thinking okay, maybe I can make this my side job. And other people are actually looking to make a full to convert their current job to escape the 9 to 5, and then actually do this as like a full-time living. And so the idea of this platform, the idea of UpWorlds, is actually to build more and more creators tools that would allow people to showcase themselves not only by a normal portfolio, but like an immersive portfolio where somebody can go and jump into their worlds and then have like a single person experience. The problem is that now if you have your worlds in any platforms open, anybody can jump in and then just invite a lot of people. So there's no way of creators of like even monetizing from it. But if you keep it closed, nobody knows that this even like exists in any platforms. So we are trying to find like a kind of like a win-win solution for like creators. They can upload it into UpWorlds, they can upload their Unity, like, and it will come out like as a WebGL, and then people can go around with like the as a first person experience. And then if they like it, they can rent it. If they like the builders, they can ask for a custom build. Even if they feel that, oh, I want to have this for my I want to have this for my metaverse platforms, they can also hire these builders. So these are the idea of like the platforms at the moment.
So it's like a taste test. I mean, so people can kind of quickly get a sense of what a space offers before.
Yes.
I mean, I to be honest, I have to admit, I didn't know that. I didn't know UpWorlds was providing. So
This is a new. We just released this actually about two weeks ago, and
okay.
we had like our first round of like we had to build this in phase because like we were building this from a money that we got from a community, which was like the Patreon, and so everything has to be like in phasing. The first one is for us is to get more acquisition. So we started getting the acquisition, get different builders from a different platforms, and then we went to actually this was thanks to you, because we went into like the VR days, and then
Yeah.
you connect us to like different people, and then we got some ideas, talking to here, talking to there, and a lot of people say like maybe you should like put it a step forward. And then we were like, okay, so we gathered a lot of like the pain point from our users, from the community, and from the people that we meet in VR days, and we are like, I think we think immersive portfolio would be like a good pathway to take. So we started building, and we released this 2 weeks ago. Now the platforms catering, like it's a specialized marketplace catering for user who build in metaverse platforms. And I will show this just a minute. Like what does this mean?
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. Yeah, we talked, I guess, for XRMust, you know, the publication that we did our earlier talk with. Yeah, before this was released, I knew you were hinting at it. I knew you said that there was some new updates coming, so I am excited to see that. And I'm also happy to hear that you feel like that VR Days, the Immersive Tech Week, the
Yes.
immersive money market, yeah, that I produced last year was a valuable experience. You guys were popular. I have to say that you and one other were the most in demand among the kind of investors and the industry people who, yeah. So that's good. I'm happy to hear that. I don't really, I did that event. I don't know what the long-term benefits are for the participants. So I'm happy to hear.
For us, it builds our roadmap for this year.
Well, perfect. Well, and I have to thank Andre Lunev, because I think he's the one who put you guys, on my radar. So, and Andre was the main founder for me of this Zero Events and XR Crowd stuff. So shout out to Andre. But so great. I'm looking forward to seeing that. So one thing that there's a couple things that I want to ask about your community, and using it as kind of maybe a representation of the community at large, is, and we did talk about it before, just kind of maybe the geographic distribution. I'm curious, who are the people who are creating the most? Because the VR sector is very North American. I think it's fair to say. I mean, because China's its own thing, and I have no idea what's happening in the Chinese market. But definitely in Europe, it does seem like North America is quite big. But even in Europe, maybe it's, they do a lot of events. I mean, it's big here too. But I wonder, is it North Americans? Is it Europeans who are the main creators, or is it a broader global distribution?
Well, to be very honest, like I think it started with most of the user groups starts from America. But right now, with Rec Room being like bigger and VR chat even like having like a large user base, I would say that Asia has started to come up so much. Like, and
Mhm.
when I say Asia, of course, I say like Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, because I go around like VR chat and I go around Rec Room and then I started talking to people, and it's very likely like these days I'm like, where are you from? Like, oh, you build this? Yes. Where are you from? And they're like, I'm from Japan. I'm from Hong Kong, and I'm from Korea. And so that was like, okay, so there's a lot more people that are joining this throughout like everywhere. And in terms of Europe, like America was like the first one that US was the first one that the user base started from there. It came
Mhm.
down to Europe. And then I think the last one would be like it came down to Asia. Right now I think people kind of like familiarize themselves about like what can I do, what I cannot do. And then it started going to more specialized um, profession. It's so we see a lot more people that comes from like industrial design,
Mhm.
architecture, and then we see a lot of like 3D design, product design started to come in into the to the market, visual effect designer. So and a very interesting part is like the music designer. They started coming into the space and collaborating like to build like an immersive virtual world.
With everybody, probably. Every time I've ever done like a hackathon and we had an audio participant, everybody that audio participant was part of every single project because there never seems to be enough of them. So they're the communal resource is anyone who's into audio and immersive
Yeah.
experiences. Um, that's interesting. Now that you mention it, we spoke with Medra last time, who's from Neos, right? And we
Yes.
had done a tour. He had helped guide us through a tour of Neos into Japantown because I had asked a question kind of about, linguistics is kind of a barrier for a lot of things. Not necessarily making, though sometimes like the linguistics are a barrier for making, but even sometimes just knowing that something was made and existing in a platform. And he took us because Neos curiously had all these different languages supported,
Yeah.
native,
This
like
is
so
really
many.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have like the auto translation stuff going on in some places. And he took us to Japantown, and it was really amazing to see that. Yeah, there's a Japantown region within Neos and stuff. And I didn't see that in VR chat, but I wonder in VR chat if you have these linguistic communities kind of around as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. 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 Actually, in Discord, they have this dedicated um, server. Of course, they don't have a big user group, but they have like a dedicated server. For example, like VR chat Vietnam.
Hmm.
And like most of the things they build is it's revolving around like Vietnam. The same like Japan, the same like Korea, and I'm sure maybe it's like I'm sure they have like other stuff too, but this is something that I remember that they have Vietnam, they have Japan, and Thailand. Sorry, and Thailand. And most of the conversation that goes around this server are like, how do we build a what do you call this? Digital twins. Like how do
Oh
you
yeah.
build the digital twins of like the maybe the theme park, maybe the famous totem or something like this. So it's very specialized, and I feel that slowly we see a lot of like these digital twins like within the metaverse.
I mean, digital twin is kind of one of these little pet peeve things that I have as a term because I had to do I did I think my thesis proposal for my PhD was about digital twins.
Wow.
And
Okay.
it's the difference between a digital twin, which is integrated, right? There's data transfer going on between the physical to the digital representation versus just a model of it, like a recreation of it, which is usually what people mean. But at the same time, like you can't like that's just the term, like that's what people are referring to it now.
It's
And it,
actually pretty interesting because like before we went to live and you were mentioning about I'm looking for someone who are doing this cultural things, like, and I was mentioning to you about Lida,
Yeah.
like one of the people like in our community, and she built actually her most of the things that she built is a digital twins, but digital twins in a sense of like she's building something that is no more there in the physical life. Like, so
Mm.
if, for example, if you go to Greece, so she built like a building that was on a one-on-one size that was supposed to be in Greece, like, I don't know, 300 years ago. Now it's a ruin. If you go to Greece, you're not gonna find it again. But she literally like learned the history and everything, and she built like a one-on-one size of it with everything. And so every now and then she actually have like this virtual tour, and like she would take people and say, oh, on your right we have this, and on your left we have this. It's like a tour, but
That's true.
it's
Yeah,
like a
that's like
walk
the
down
difference.
the path. Yeah.
Well, and that's interesting because we were talking as well. Another member of your community is known to me, and I think I think he's spoken at Azure events. Ertu, and Ertu had done he had access. Someone had shared him access to um, the site of the Bamyan Buddhas that were destroyed, and they do a tour. And so I had actually we had some meetings and discussions. There was a tour guide from Iran, right, a country that would struggle to do to fully maximize the tour potential.
Mhm.
And was interested in virtual tours as a thing, yeah, guiding around recreations, or in the case of Lita, like these reconstructions, which I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I don't think a lot of people, when they think of virtual content creators, they're thinking of heritage, um, but obviously they can be, and there's a lot of demand and perhaps a lot of untapped demand for cultural tourism. That's an area that I actually got started in VR, was in cultural. I wanted to do cultural tourism. I'm a big, photogrammetrist and cultural heritage guy. So it's interesting that you say that. Do you see an
Today.
emerging element? Um, do you see any emerging demand for something like additional like event management or tours, content that's related to the virtual world but isn't necessarily the virtual world? It's this other type of content.
Well, let's see. We have gotten people who came to oppose to ask for can you build us a virtual walls, like a complete fantasy virtual walls on like a recreational virtual walls, heritage and everything. But it's something like on their mind. And then we have somebody who actually come and say, can you build us a digital a digital twins? I think about a year ago or something that we did have someone who were interested in like doing this, who were interested more in this tour. And so I forget what's her name. Uh, so, but she was doing like the both things. So she said, I can build, but I can also, I do the tour with you.
Mhm.
So I'm a tour guide. So she's a tour guide in a real life. She's a tour guide, and she has gone through like so many places, and she started learning Unity. And every time she goes to like a new places or something, she built that, and she was using Altspace. So she built that in Altspace, and then she started saying, okay, I have the tour in two ways. Like, do you want this tour in real life, and this is my price, and do you want the tour virtually, and we can use Altspace, and this is my price. And we went to her opening. She had an opening night in Outspace, and we went to it. It was pretty nice. It was nice. So it opens a new line of business if you want to actually.
Well, I mean, I hear. I'm happy I would actually be interested to connect with that person at some point to kind of get a sense of
I'll find her in my LinkedIn.
yeah, what that experience was for her and how sustainable it was. Because you hear a lot of talk about the impact of VR on tourism. Usually, it's kind of the same as it is for like museums, right? It's meant to be something within a traditional business model of get you to a specific location and pay for all of that. But as the carbon footprint impact of VR is becoming a more frequent element of discussion. I was at Venice recently, the film festival, and one of the projects concluded with a long presentation of the carbon impact of the VR industry, and some extent of their project specifically. So I'm interested that you mentioned that. But that's kind of
I went to this experience, the Venice experience in VR chat. I told you about this, I think. It was pretty nice. I tested this to a couple of people because I thought like the Venice boat ride was like wow. Like I was like, this was nice. Like I didn't, to be honest, I went to a lot of virtual worlds, but like when I had the experience in the boat ride and everything, I thought like this is decent experience. Like it was a nice experience.
in VR chat, you mean?
In VR chat, yeah.
So I was there physically this year and didn't get a chance to go because I did it differently. It was an interesting hybrid. It's almost kind of hybrid experience a little bit, more location based. But I did work Venice Festival in VR chat the previous 2 years,
Okay.
and South by in 2020 and stuff like that. So it was. I mean, I'm curious to see how this sticks, and I'm curious to see what type of opportunities for event management. Because if someone built the world for cultural heritage, it makes sense that maybe they're an expert of the thing that they're building or reconstructing. But when it comes to event management, virtual event management, I think a lot of people incorrectly think that the traditional event production skills translates directly, and that's not. I mean, onboarding is a huge issue, and all the virtual concerts like Jean-Michel Jarre stuff that I've worked, there's always lots of just onboarding issues that to some extent, if the person made the world in that platform, probably they have there's a reason to think that they may know something about onboarding and get people in there. That could be wrong though, right? Because some of these creators are experts of a platform and they may not be the best people to guide complete novices, VR novices in there, but.
Well, not really. At least this is not what I understand. Like within the creators in our community, they're really great builders. Some of them are specialized in like different stuff. But when you talk about onboarding, you're talking actually about marketing a little bit and about like how to get people to discover your world and then to experience the world, and eventually like you're talking about the retention experience. So all of those things goes under an umbrella called, like, you want to call it event management, you want to call it marketing, you want to call it like it goes under those area. And it's, in my opinion, it's not like, so it doesn't mean, actually I can guarantee like 90% of the people who knows how to build well, they don't know how to do like an onboarding to their build, because they're specialized. That like maybe 10% of them are generalized. So they're generalized. So they're like, I know how to build. Maybe I don't know how to build like super well, but I know how to like get people inside my world. So it kind of balances in that way.
I wonder, I mean, like I said, I definitely had that experience where the process of getting people into a VR chat world, for example, was really hard. And I understand why, like, because once you're into VR a lot, it's hard to remember or to kind of like imagine again what it's like to not know, what it's like to not be comfortable, and intuitive. And so, I mean, designing VR is already tough if it's not for people who are the same VR experience level as you. But I think like virtual event is also the same. I did a lot of virtual art exhibitions in hubs, which is so accessible, but so many people struggle to know to hit the button to enter room, which is like,
there.
I often ask myself, why did hubs put that button there? Like, I can kind of understand, but from my experience, it's a significant barrier to helping people to sort stuff out if they're not even in the room. But
I had this event with Pierre from Metakshu,
Yeah.
So we collaborate together with a design community called Design Buddies. So it was like, so the idea was like, how can you use a virtual world to build your immersive portfolio? So it's not just like, it's not just your digital portfolio where you send like a talent acquisition and say, here, my portfolio. You actually tell them, experience, my experience. So that was the idea of like the workshop that we did. And MetaView is specialized in Mozilla hubs. And so we thought like, okay, it was nice because like Mozilla Hub is accessible from mobile. It's a perfect tools even for users who join this to send for the any talent acquisition. And so we started like this workshop, and we were telling like, so they were teaching people, but like, this is how you enter, this is how you build like image through the platforms. And supposedly these are people who are not like they're not non-tech savvy people. They build tech savvy product, but when you introduce them to like hubs, and I thought hubs is like super easy, right? Like when we introduced them to hubs, they were like, but how, like they were confused. And so we had to kind of like do like step by step, like for them to really get the grasp. The initial workshop was about 2 weeks, but because of this we had to extend it to like 3 weeks per batch. So because like
Yeah.
of the stuff.
Yeah. That, I mean, broadly speaking, that's in line. You know, and it's curious that even with tech savvy, most of the ones that I've had, you know, particular issues with, you know, challenges, people, the events that I worked, they were definitely for non-tech people. And you know, things as simple as WASD is not intuitive for people, which,
No.
you know, it was very refreshing for me, because I remember, I don't know how old I was the first time I encountered movement with WASD instead of like controllers. You know, when I don't know how old I was, but it was like the first, I had forgotten. This was a moment in my life of discovery and the beginning of a muscle memory, you know, mapping journey that I didn't appreciate. But when I met people who did not understand and didn't realize what the significance of WASD, like the finger arrangement, just didn't appreciate it. It was nice, you know. And I think if there's anything that kind of unexpectedly comes out of doing virtual events, I always tell people this: when you do a virtual event, if you're organizing and you're planning it, and it's kind of similar when you're doing any type of simulation or virtual creation, you have to build an experience that everyone kind of takes for granted. But in building it, you really have to understand what is important, what is critical, and what is something you're not appreciating the importance of. You know, and when someone does a you know, a reconstruction of a work, you're not reconstructing everything. You really do have to decide what is the important thing that is going to make this experience, you know, it's going to make this a success.
Worthwhile. Yeah.
Yeah.
Worthwhile.
Yeah, and same thing for every virtual, you know, anything that's being made virtually, that has a physical analog, right? A designer is making important decisions, knowingly or unknowingly, but they are really making important decisions, and I hope people appreciate it.
The truth is that I think what we have seen is like when people go into like these platforms, right? Any social platforms, any metaverse platforms, they do a lot of like this like wall jumping, like wall hopping. That's what they call it. Like they do this wall hopping. And the truth is that like people can build like so much, okay, within a virtual world. They could build like so much. But what gets people to stay is it's actually not like the size of the world or something. No, it's actually just, even if you build like a very small one, but you build like a good quality one, you get people to stay there. And we have seen this. Like we have seen how people go into like a very big world and finally not exploring anything. And the creators spend like months to build one world because it's so big and everything. Sometimes some creators build about 1 week, but then they build like just a small one, but like a like a proper one, like with a good immersive experience, with a good sound, like so it makes people very comfortable. They stay there for hours, and that will just become like super popular because like people just keep on repeating going there again and again.
I mean,
So
that's been our experience, and to be honest, to build on that observation, I often when I go into a world, Engage is this very established, very successful platform for many
yeah.
years, and I go in there recently because I'll do some events in there because they have that spatial recording that's so unique for
Mhm.
a platform, and we 2 years ago, I'm saying many years ago because it was the beginning of zero events and it was pandemic and stuff. We have a guy in our community. His name is Richard Ward. He's from McKinsey, and he's one of our XR consulting experts in there. And he had built this little world. I mean, he used a template. He used this garage, but then he had kind of made the garage even more cramped, like made it even a little bit. It was already not very big, and he made it feel even smaller. And we spent, as a group of us, about 6 to 9 of us, we spent like an hour and a half, 2 hours chatting. And it was immense. And he was specifically testing something. He was testing the intimacy of the room, just the physical proximity. And this
Yeah.
was, a couple years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. And ever since then, I've kept a real eye on that. And I think when I go into a world in Engage or in VR Chat or sometimes other platforms, hubs especially, actually, when I see this giant world, the first thing I think, this person probably doesn't do a lot of user testing or doesn't have a lot of experience creating a UX for VR or immersive experiences
Yeah.
because what you see is people go explore and they get lost. They don't
Everywhere.
so yeah, there's kind of. I mean, again, it doesn't mean that you can't have a great big world. It's just the
No.
bar is a little harder if you're trying to create that social
This
intimacy.
this this is like building in the real world. To be honest, it's like building in the real world. It's like, why do you need an architect to build a museum? It's a museum. You just put a couple of wall and that's it. Like if you wanna like go with that, but you need an architect because you build an experience there. It's like where do you want your users to go? Like how it
Mhm.
might look like. And this was the reason why I really like whenever we do an event or something, I really like to use a template from Metakshu, from the Metakshu studio,
Mhm.
because this is what they're doing. So they build a wall and then they test it. They give it away for different events. Use it, and they collect the data. At
Yeah.
the end, what they want, they're an architect. They have a base of an architect, so they think like an architect. So what they
And
want at the
researchers.
end,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because
So
Pierre's a
exactly.
PhD in art
So
immersive architectural research. Yeah.
exactly. So what they want is that they want people to come back with the data and say, where does your user go? Like some of them say, oh, they're haywire, going here, going there. So they actually reiterate the world based on to build that user experience. Like if you want to create an exhibition, how might the world should look like? Like you
Mhm.
want to have something maybe like a colosseum type, so that people will just focusing on one person in front. They do this kind of testing. So it's like it, their worlds, I think, get noticed a lot for like exhibition renting.
Mhm. Well, I mean, and
It's
that type of research, right, is very established and well known for a long time in gaming.
yeah.
And I think also it's also really observed in architecture, traditionally. But the problem is you can't iterate that building so many times.
No,
I think
no.
so. It's like once you've learned the lesson, it's like, all right, well, next museum we'll get it right, or something. So
But in VR, you can.
yeah, exactly. I mean, but coming kind of back to like what I don't know if it's an emerging trend, but I would hope that it is right. This what you're talking about, like how does this world perform? Some type of metric that is it maybe it's not just voting, but some type of measure or metric that a potential buyer of a world or renter of a world is like, what? How does this world perform? Like I know that they can make it, and I know it's beautiful, but for the type of event that I'm doing, how would this world perform? Are you hearing any type of like request for
Yes.
for those types of metrics?
To be honest, there are a couple of questions that people always ask whenever they want to start, like one, if they want to rent or they want to build. And the first one is that, is this world compatible to my users? Okay, what are your users is using? My users is using mobile. My users is using PC. My users is using Mac. So what type of world would be suitable for them? That's the very first question that they ask. The second one is that, based on the material that I want to put there, can this world take this material? Whether that's a video, whether that's a storytelling, it's a narrative, it's a museum, it's a narration or portfolio, or just like an exhibition event. So these are the second things they ask. And then the third one, they go into a layer of like, then is like how nice it is. First, they always talk about like functional. And I think currently in all the platforms, this has, so we actually spotted this like from a conversation with the client, we spotted this from a conversation with the community, with the builders, because this has always been a pain point, like a barrier for someone to actually like rent the world from the builders, to ask this builder to build the world, because user might feel that it's nice to have my event virtually, but they might think about like the complication that might come, like who's gonna do the virtual, who's gonna do the event management, what type of device that's good for my user, what if my users cannot use this, what if they cannot enter, like all of this stuff. So then all of those layers made them feel like, maybe I'm not gonna do a virtual event, I'm just gonna use Google Meet. So those things. And then this is actually the reason why we started adding a layer within UpWorlds that would allow the builders to specify, like, this is this type of world. This world has got like these amenities. It's perfect for this type of events, and then it's compatible with Android, iOS, or only VR headset. And then you can run it in which operating system? Mac, mobile. So when somebody go into the platforms and they see this world, they can make like an informed decision about like, oh, maybe this is right for me, maybe this is not right for me. And even after that, when they reached out and they inquire the builders and they say like, I have some questions about this, and like I'm going to invite 50 people, for this and blah blah. At least they're coming from like a place of like understanding, a little less scared to even to inquire. Because if they just see this in a platforms, they would be more scared to inquire because there's so many questions that they have in their head.
Well, I mean, and the conversation started, and that's the important bit, is that the conversation starts. I kind of, you, what you're describing for me, what I've seen a lot is, right, certain clients they just want an agency. They just want someone who just kind of like, I take my money and,
do this for me. Do this for me.
I'm going to give you 3 criteria, and I'll probably come back with a million revisions after once I see what you've done. But I just want you to take all that responsibility, and I can understand that. But that's usually a sign, right, of a fairly immature market, or a fairly immature client understanding of what it is that they're buying. That approach. I mean, agencies obviously are a very successful model around the world, but it would be nice, right, if there was a little bit more clarity, exactly, a little more transparency, because that's right. The price goes up, and I think the concern about price is what really turns off a lot of people. Is maybe this cost me. Sometimes I've worked in an event or I've seen an event, and it's like, I know this was maybe 90,000 or 100,000 euro easily, but I also know that it probably could have been done in another market, at a much smaller fraction of that cost. And the client doesn't really know where their money is going for what priority or what, and because it's still being determined. No one knows what these costs are. But that brings me to another point. I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't want to cut off before we switch topic to something.
No, go ahead.
I know some platforms have a user license agreement where it's not really clear that someone could be profiting from a world commercially in their platform that they've made. I think, for example, I've worked some events, and I know that VR Chat will, charge for events if they know about it, right? If they're aware of it. It's such a big platform, maybe they don't know about a lot of stuff. But are you aware of any? Is it getting easier or is it getting harder for these people who are creating value, generating revenue from worlds in these free platforms?
I guess now, because a lot more people at least have more clarity about like what type of activities that we can do within virtual worlds, because obviously, like by example, by the popularity, like they have seen, so they started having more ideas about like, oh, it's possible to do this kind of things using virtual worlds. And because they started understanding this, they started opening a conversation. What if I want to do a podcast? Like, I think about 2 months ago, we got an inquiry from somebody who has who submit their song to Spotify, and so he has like a Spotify, and so he wanted his music to be a virtual world. So he doesn't want it to be just like music, but he wants the virtual worlds to tell a story about the music. So he hired one of the builders to start building him an album. So he was working on this for about 2 months, and I will send you an invitation because they're having we already had the open house about some times ago, but they're having like another event for this. So I will send you an invitation for this. What you can experience in this is that is a compilation of like the 12 songs. So you are going into an album from one world, and then with the things that you see, with the things that you grab, with the music that you hear, like the world basically, the world tells you a story, and then once that song is done, it gives like a visual cues and says like, go to this door and you will hear the second music now. So they go through that door again until the end of the music. So we started seeing people at least start to understand, oh, you can use virtual worlds for this. And the more people who understand this, the more people who are willing to start doing this, I think slowly it will be less scarier for people. Even the platforms will update the features and everything, but it will be less scarier for people to say that maybe I want to explore what's there.
But you're not seeing any extra hurdles or barriers or limitations on from the platform, because I'm thinking of a couple platforms that some events they don't charge, and then some events they charge for, or they want to charge for, because I guess the user license agreements are sometimes they don't want people to be running commercial events inside the platform because the platform is free, for example. And so are you seeing anything, the more that there's demand? I mean, yeah.
At the moment, not yet. At least not. This is something that we see. Maybe like, because at the end of the day, if it's like a user generated content, and supposedly the full proprietaries of the worlds belongs to the creators, and so maybe they submit it to UPWorlds, and then somebody actually inquire and say like, can I use your worlds, for podcasts, for example, and then they decided to let this person use that worlds. Most of the transactions happens like outside, and right, it happens like outside. And so even if I own the world and tomorrow you come there and you use the world, nobody knows if you don't own the world. It could just be like your world. We just have a different layer of ownership there. You have the ownership for a while, I have the ownership fully, but nobody knows at that point of time. So I think any platform that are selling themselves as a user-generated platforms, it will be difficult for them to sustain creators if at some point they're saying that I'm going to charge you because you are running a commercial thing. Because at the end of the day, people want to build because they're seeing something for them. And we tested this. So a lot of people coming into UpWorlds, like we have a channel called like welcome, and then like get yourself familiarize yourself, and if you have any question, ask me. And a lot of them came in and asked the same question over and over again until we got quite tired with it, and so we built like a simulation to answer this. They were like, hello, I am blah 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 blah, I have this skill and I want to, and this is my motivation. So I'm here to make money. I'm here to meet more people. I'm here to, they have this. Which platforms is the best one for me? So initially I used to like talk to them like one-on-one on like, oh, this would be good, this would be good. But then there's a lot more people who started coming in. So I was like, I cannot be like doing this. Like, so we talked like internally within the group. And then we built a simulation. It was a very simple simulation that we built using like a question and answer simulation. So it's like, who are you? What's your skill? What's your motivation? Based on that, we recommend we recommend platforms for you. If you're here to make money, do you want to make money by renting, by selling, by NFT? We have the platform. So we recommend based on that. So it's a recommendation engine.
Do you have to? I mean, I hope you patented that, but do you? Because that actually would be in pretty high demand. Because if people aren't going to your website, they're getting it through consultants. I know people who tell me they're in the advertising and the branded metaverse sector, right? Providing these services, and they tell me the same thing, that most of their meetings start and kind of revolve around that. And so if there was a ready-made generator, that could be pretty valuable, a time saver at least.
Because we just actually like released the platform about 2 weeks ago. We are thinking to actually add a section within the platform that says like, if you're new here in the builders community onboarding, if you're new here, just use this and get yourself like self onboard yourself. And if you once you know the platforms, at least like why you're here and blah blah, and then we'll connect you to more builders within that platform, and then maybe you'll start to understand like different stuff.
So
but
I'll
send you some stuff on this.
Well, and we're kind of segueing into to demoing. If you wouldn't mind showing us the platform a little bit, because we haven't done that yet. But how often do you think now that you might have to update those recommendations? Do you see a lot of change? I mean, definitely some platforms are innovating a lot, and some platforms really don't so much.
I would say that the last time we visited this was about 3 months ago, and we have a plan to revisit this in November. Like, for example, VR chat just put up like a VR chat studio. It was initially like one of the questions that Rec Room. So one of the questions that we have is that, do you know how to use Unity? And if they say yes, we don't recommend Rec Room. Now we can recommend Rec Room.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. That's probably the biggest news of this quarter, before Cambria comes out.
Hold on, let me see if I can tap into this one, the entire screen. I suppose this would be fine. Can you see my screen right now?
Hold on, let me add it. There we go. Yep.
Okay. So this is the new platforms, and why do we come up with this is that because a lot more people so we have builders like today about like 12 builders from 12 different platforms. And so right now actually UpWorlds acts like a discovery hub where people can find worlds, but not through platforms only, but from the builders. So for example, they're interested in like renting a world or discovering a world on platform base. They could do this. Like they could actually find them through here. We're updating this as we speak. And then like they can actually search the world, and the searching can goes like through the name of the world, if they know the name of the world, or the activity. So for example, a ballroom, because the search here, we added a couple of logic, and the logic actually read not only the title, but also the description. So when the builders actually put in, the creators actually put in like, okay, my wall is used for ballroom, for get together, and somebody can just put get together here, and they will get assortment of like a wall that would be good for this. Okay, so these are one of the example of the wall. This is like by Air2. We talk about this. So I open this one. Yeah. So these are like the Buddha Bamiyan, and this was based in a Mozilla hub. So right now we are actually adding a couple of like more details into the walls. Is like, okay, so what about the wall? What's this wall is about, and the kind of activity that people can actually see within this wall. And then to add this, we add a specification, like where are these wall available on? Like, okay, it's available on Mozilla hubs, and all of these are directed immediately to like the Mozilla hubs, like how to use Mozilla hubs. And then, for example, like, and these are like the most question that we get often asked for, like, okay, where can I use this? Like, I don't have an Oculus Quest. Can I use this? Yes, can. Because it's compatible with Quest, with Rift, with Go, with like the Windows, iOS, Android, Samsung Gear, and Google Cardboard. And of course, for this, we keep on like updating this. And so they were like, okay.
So with Oculus Rift, I don't see HTC Vive.
No. Normally, this kind of things this is a self updated listing, and so the builders will need to update this. I'll show you more example here. Okay, this is the Black Cat. Okay, so this is so in this part, so Air2 has made this wall like open for public. So which means open in a sense of like, if somebody wants to reach out to him and say, I want to use this, he's actually giving it for free. These are another creators that are actually having like putting his wall on renting. This is the Black Cat, and he made his wall like for like a cafe, like a jazz elegant cafe, and the activities like maybe you can have like it's a restaurant, so you can and we put like amenities for people to get more informed about like, okay, what are the amenities? Like if I rent this wall, what are the amenities? They have a stage, we have a 2-story bar, and they have like interactable beverages. And for this, they can rent the wall. And then we have another, we call this like a creator tools. It's something what we call like a flexible pricing tools. So as a creators, for example, you build something and then you put it in Upworlds, you can actually say like, I want my walls to go on a rent, like for example, on this price, maybe $43 a week. But I'm open to a flexible pricing. So they just need to opt in to that, enable that features. And when somebody actually see this, when they go into like the checkout, they can enter their own price. For example, sorry, I only can pay for $20 for now. Would you like to take it? And so this will go into the builders. If the builders are okay, then they'll do this transaction.
And are you facilitating the transaction? How are you executing that transaction practically?
So right now we are actually integrating Stripe. We have Stripe. We have Stripe within the platforms, and so we are acting like we have an escrow account. So whenever somebody wants to rent, they pay to Upworlds, and then once the renting is over and everything was clear, and then we forward it to the builders.
Awesome. So when did that launch? Because I don't remember that last year.
This was launched 2 weeks ago.
Okay, all right. So that's a big deal. So now you are facilitating the rental transactions of virtual worlds. Yeah, I can share the world again. Sorry, you taken that browser for a second.
No problem. This was okay. So this was Lida. This was actually one of the world that I was telling you about. This was Lida. She built an ancient Athens Agora, and then same thing. So it's available for rent, and then some of the activity and some of the specification. So what we see is that, so we tested this. When we released it, we tested this to a different users as well. Sorry, so let me just go here so you don't need to see that. We tested this to different users. When we say users, two types, because like this is a marketplace. So we tested this to the builders, and we tested this as well to the buyer, of course. Like, do you understand about this wall? Like, do you know where this wall is? Where does this wall is nested in? Where can you use the walls? How much is the price? Like, how to get in touch with the builders? And also, we started testing the builders tools. So the builders tools in this case is that, so UpWorlds, because we started this as a Wix platform. So when we were doing acquisition, a lot of the things were submitted to us from our Discord, and we were the one who handled like the listing. But with more people coming in, we started hearing a lot more people saying that I would feel more comfortable if I can handle my own like product listing, because like they update their walls so much. Sometimes they update their wall on like a weekly basis or something. So the operational things become like even really difficult for us because we're a small team. But also it's very difficult for them to also like keep on like sending us ticket and say like I changed my wall and I changed my wall. Sometimes they just wanna they have mentioned this, that they want to experiment with the pricing, with like maybe this picture is better for my wall and maybe that video is better for my walls. So with that, with the new thing, with the new release, we add like a let me show you. This is a testing account. So we add like a function for them to add new walls. Okay, and okay, so within add new walls, this is the normal things. What's the name of your wall, description, and the capacity. So people needs to be well informed about like how many people can go into your walls nicely, like the
So
capacity.
is that number unlimited? Because I hear people sometimes say absolutely absurd numbers, and because they're trying to make a sell. And in some technical
Sure.
sense, that is a fact, that number is real technically, but so I wonder, like that capacity thing is obviously a little
At the
subjective.
moment we at the moment we open this at the moment,
Mm.
but one of the things that is within our what do you call this, like roadmap, we want to try to connect this capacity with the platform that they choose. For
Yeah.
example, they say my wall is in spatial, so we know spatial can only uphold like 40
Mm.
people, and so we want to be able to connect this. And for example, like horizon, like my wall is in horizon. We know that horizon has a lot to do with like the kind of things that you put within the wall. But
Yeah.
mostly I think they can take up to 17 people or 18 people.
Mm.
So we want to be able to add that kind of logic, but for now it's open.
Yeah, I mean that's
Like the,
also right. That's as you said. I was in a discussion, right, with another platform. We were talking briefly about Deep, which isn't yet represented in UpWorlds, but it's one of these many new platforms with a kind of a unique offering. And yeah, there was this question about performance and capacity, and it's a user content creation platform. So the platform can't say, because it's up to the user to kind of determine where that pain point, where that breaking point is in terms of what they put into the world.
of course. And then this is where they can add the image or the video. And one of the things that we saw from the builders is that they started going around their wall with Twitch. And so one of the features that they asked is that, can I have my Twitch in my world channel? So we implement Twitch here. So suppose like they do like a live or something, it will be added to their world page. So people can experience the world and also see them, or maybe see some events that has happened like within that world. And this is where the WebGL came into the pictures. So we
Yeah.
have a
Okay.
couple of things. This is where a little bit of a complication, like this took us a while to build. Like why? Because at the moment, all these platforms are doing their own thing. Some of them saying like, okay, I use Unity, and that's why then we can use the WebGL. But some of them like they don't allow iframe. Like Mozilla Hub allow iframe. Some of them doesn't allow iframe. Some of them allow like Mona, like it doesn't allow anything. So then people can only add the link of the world and then get it redirected there. So we try to cater different stuff for these builders, But the most, I would say, like the immersiveness that would come is this one, because people can upload their Unity, which was why that I was really happy that Rec Room decided to say like I'm going with Unity. Because now they can upload their Unity files, and then they can have like an immersive look in it. And then finally, they can add their activities, their amenities, the hardware, the application, the operating system, and pricing. Obviously, if they want it to be paid, free, I want to rent, how much? I want to sell, how much? I want my wall is an NFT. Okay, how much? So we're trying to cater like different type of use case, but at the end of the day, like we're focusing on building something that would help the creators to build like creators economy.
Yeah, it's just something sustainable. So just because you kind of wrapped up on those last three options of renting and buying an NFT, what would you say is that distribution that you're seeing among creators so far? Is it very much NFT? Is it very much rental?
At the moment, because NFT seems to have like an immediate value. It seems like it has an immediate value. It's like, okay, I can, if I'm within a community, like we can actually transact with each other, and then at least I could see a price goes up, like my price would increase, like in the NFT. And so a lot of people were actually excited, obviously, by the idea of like I can submit my will as an NFT, and they keep on building and building and building. But I mean, I'm not one to say how NFT would go, so hopefully it goes like super well and it would be super great. But one thing that we also see is that builders, especially like builders who really love to build, they build every day. They could build different stuff in like a week. They could have 2 different walls, in a month 3 4 different walls. And so they started seeing about like, what are the options for me? If my NFT is not working right now, I'm okay to have another option. This was actually one of the reasons that even along the way, we want to be able, like we want to be able to find different creators economy tools that would allow them to say like, maybe I want to have everything. I want to have the as an NFT, maybe something similar. I want to have it like to rent. Then I want to sell it. But whatever works, because at the moment it's about trial and error, and we want to be able to provide that tools for them to do like the trial and error.
I mean, I would imagine, I mean, because I don't know, maybe not every marketplace does this, but obviously many marketplaces have some type of like, feedback or review tool, right? Like, how did this world work for your event, and how satisfied were you with it? And I mean, one, I could see like for people who are building and continuing to work on their world, like that becomes a problem, because you may have gotten some negative feedback early on and you've updated the world since then, but does your score update to that? And at the same time, like maybe I want a world that I think that has been developed, but if it was sold as an NFT, is the creator motivated to continue iterating and improving that world? It's an interesting thing that I think you don't really have in marketplaces of physical assets, because that's it, like that's the thing I'm buying and it's already made presumably, or it's already designed. But these are somebody's living and organic. So what's the creator going to be around an organic thing?
I think whenever like creator goes into like NFT, when they actually submit their will as an NFT, you cannot rent an NFT, you buy an NFT, and then like it goes like that. But sometimes when it becomes like NFT is not also something that, not all NFT is running like a flowing water. Some of them take some times, and like somewhere along this line, they started seeing other stuff. Like for example, okay, maybe I want to rent it out, but you cannot have the same exact one, because what's the value of the NFT, for example?
Yeah.
If you're renting this out, if you duplicate this. And so what they did is, what at least what I see is that they would change it. They would change it a little bit. They would change the color. They would change they change it like somewhat a little bit, and then they said, okay, I would put this on rent. So if you want to buy the NFT, you can. But if not, like if you just want to use it for an event or something like this, you can rent it out. It's similar version, but it's different.
I mean, it would be interesting, right? Like, it makes sense to me that maybe someone would want to buy an NFT of the world that was used for a specific event. That world might have been used for multiple concerts or multiple events, but there's a version of that that was just for that event,
But
right?
this is a niche market, I would say.
Yeah,
Like
obviously.
it's a super niche market, because like it's like for example, somebody is making like a digital twin of I don't know, MoMA, for
Mhm.
example, like New York MoMA, and then they started like putting this in NFT, and because it's MoMA, a lot, like they started giving like, oh, do this event, and then like it started becoming famous because a lot of famous events are happening there. But how many of these are like this? It's a very
Yeah,
niche
of
market,
course.
and
Yeah.
people don't see this as like the, at least I would say people who see this as a, like an event place would be a niche market, but people who would see this as an investment is a bigger market. I, probably I don't go make an event there, but I would see this, oh, it's a good investment. I would buy it and I would like do this. It's like a stock.
So,
NFT is like a stock.
so for worlds that are bought by NFT, do they now stay? Can they stay on the platform and just the ownership reverts? I mean, can you have it's rented, and the rental is a distinct thing from the ownership. The ownership can be bought, it can be transacted, but the ability to rent it is persistent.
So at the moment, how to cater this as well is that for one world, we allow one creator's economy tools.
Hmm.
So it's like, for example, they choose renting, and then the world is rented. It's rented at least. Okay? You will see that. But if it's like, so they cannot choose like one world is listed to three different things at the same time. No, if they want to do this, they have to have three different listings of their worlds. So this would keep the value of an NFT as well, because that whenever somebody actually use the platforms as to list their NFT, the the what do you call it? The checkout doesn't happen in Apple's platforms. We act like as a entry point, like a discovery platforms. We act as an entry point. Like I have a world that's also an NFT, but the checkout happens from, for example, in OpenSea.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it doesn't mean that they cannot stay in the platforms. It can. If somebody wants to buy, then the experience would be the same. It's the same journey, but they just would buy it from another person. So it doesn't interfere in their listing actually.
But okay. But so if I made the world and I sold it as an NFT,
Hmm.
how would the new owner of it, who say I want to keep it on Upworlds, but I want to rent it, I bought it as a rental investment, you know, like how
Okay.
would they have to take the world down and the new owner put the world up?
No, because like when you sell something as an NFT, regardless where that goes, you always have an ownership of that.
No, I mean in Upworlds, because right now you're paying. So if the recipient of the payment is different now, right?
Ah, yeah, then completely. If in this case, then they can upload a new one. So whoever, for example, I have a world, then I list it as an NFT. You
Hmm.
buy them, then you signed up to Upworlds because now you want to sell them. You can list the same one. It's true, but it means there's going to be two listings, but the
Yeah,
same
yeah, that's
listing.
yeah. So when you buy a world, it stays on the Upworld. But what happens to it once it has been? I mean, NFT or not
Oh,
NFT, because
unless, sorry, unless you buy them. Like
okay.
you buy their, when we have like an option to buy, and in this case when somebody choose an option to buy, they actually submit their Unity files and everything, like all the words or everything, and so the full ownership would transfer to the new owner, and then they have to delete it. They have to
Well,
completely delete it.
then they have to delete it. It's not
Yeah.
automatically deleted at the close. It's
No,
still up
no,
to
no,
the
no, no.
user to execute the
Yeah.
delete. You know, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets kind
Because
of
it's,
conflicting, right? Because the owner who sold it still has digital copies of it. So, you know,
this is like if you're selling a I don't think like, hopefully like somewhere along the line we will find like a way to validate this that is not
mhm.
through blockchain. Like,
Yeah.
but this is like if you're selling a painting, for example, like an actual painting. How do you know that the creator cannot have like another one? You don't know.
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I mean, even in a case, let's think of VR. I mean, maybe it's only for VR chat, right? Because VR chat, if I bought that world, that actually doesn't give me the ability to upload that world unless I have a VR chat account
Yes.
and I know how to, like, it's interesting because it would be interesting, and maybe this is that interoperability, this idea that there's a persistent ownership and transference. Not necessarily that I could take my VR chat world to Rec Room, but that VR chat world or another platform world, the ownership of it, the revenue generation potential of it could be transferred from person to person. Because right now it's individually linked to a
Yeah,
link to an
that's
account
true.
in every
Yeah.
platform. Yeah.
I think somewhere along the line, hopefully that we'll see some lights like how to do this. But at the moment, yes. At the moment, this is what it is.
So it sounds to me, and I could be wrong, but it sounds to me like rental is a great idea, and NFTs are always a wise investment. You can't go wrong with NFTs. So the third one, it
I
sounds like there might be some extra steps, but of course,
yeah. Yeah,
if
yeah.
you know what you're doing, then you know how to buy it and you know how to use it properly.
Sometimes like what we see in buying is that um, somebody builds something, okay, and someone is super interested, like just to have them for their own. So they see
Mhm.
this as a template actually. I
Well,
want to buy your template.
I know an artist personally. I've introduced through a colleague in our group, Julie Walsh, who's an art curator of XR. One of the artists, Claudia Hart. I don't want to get it wrong, but my understanding was she sold a VR project, a Unity VR project for quite a significant sum to, I think it was the Whitney Museum, if I'm not mistaken. And
Oh, okay.
it's a lot, and that's kind of an example of what would be here. The person wants the Unity project, and there's a good faith between them and the creator that
Yeah.
the creator's not going to duplicate with what they have and stuff like that. But there's a bit of good faith involved, and yeah, I mean that was many thousands of dollars. I don't want to quote the number because I don't know if it's public, and I don't know if I remember
I
it correctly, but it's very
I
significant.
I read this. I think I read this article.
Mhm. I mean, so putting I would be. I mean, obviously, you probably don't have the numbers yet because if this just came out a few weeks ago, but
Oh,
I
okay.
would be curious to know what are you seeing in terms of valuations, you see, I think in the two examples that you showed, the weekly rate was like $43, and I wonder if that's a suggested amount or if that's what you're seeing the market kind of settle on. I mean, it's still early,
No,
right? 2 weeks in.
it's it's still very early, and at the moment we don't have an engine that suggests like how much people are willing to pay for this. And so at the moment that we are actually opening this for the creators to put their numbers and trial and error based on that numbers. But hopefully, what we want is that maybe in the future, the more we understand, the more we have more data about how much people paying, how much people are wanting to rent, how much people are paying for like at least an initial NFT, things like this. We could build like a recommendation engine that says that a world that serve for these activities, or a world that is this big, or a world that is compatible with this device normally costs around here to here. But
I
of
mean, I,
course we
I
need
can
sometimes for this.
I can tell you that knowledge is not readily available. I don't know anyone in the industry who has that knowledge. So that the thing
No,
that
no.
the information, the market data that you are potentially going to be generating. I mean, I've done some consulting for some institutions who were, part of it was what do you think would be the right platform and all this other stuff, all these things that UpWorlds is kind of resolving. But one of them was what is the cost, and what's a practically appropriate and reasonable cost, and that information is not. I don't think anybody has it because
No. No,
I don't. And I don't know anyone who does, and I know people who
I,
would if it existed.
I remember talking to Fadi from Accenture, and
Fine.
like we had this discussion, and I was like, if you don't know, nobody knows.
That's what I mean. Like, I mean, I know when I know, and I know people in some of the consultings in this space. No one has that information. So, I mean, that puts you in a very important. That puts Upworlds in a very, I would say, a critical position within the industry for as an advocate for creators, because one of the dangers of a marketplace is that it's kind of a race to the bottom in pricing. There's a certain point where expertise is perhaps hard to defend the price for expertise. So it's really interesting. It's really valuable, and I know we've gone over. And Sonya, I don't want to go so much longer because we could talk a lot more. But that's a good place to end on. I think it's really that's a major development for Upworlds, and I'm really excited and happy to see all the progress that you guys, your team has been making. And yeah, you're on the cusp of something that could potentially, and I don't think it's an exaggeration to say it's somewhat transformational for the virtual creator ecosystem, because as I said, that data isn't out there, and it could benefit a lot of people. So I wish you guys really great success, and I encourage anyone who's watching this video. I know it's at the end we got into Upworlds. I'll summarize a little bit and put it at the beginning in the description, but check it out. Definitely check out Upworlds if you're a creator. Check out Upworlds if you're looking for worlds, looking to host events and do things in there. So, Sonya, I give you just the last bit. If there's anything you want to wrap up on, otherwise, I want to thank you very much for spending
thank you. Thank you for having me, Michael. It's always been a pleasure talking to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Sonya. Thank you again for everyone who watched and who follows. And hopefully we'll do another discussion soon. And so, Sonya, you'll be at AWE Europe, right?
Yes, I will be.
Okay. You're going to be talking, just real quickly, you're going to be talking about what exactly?
I know. So this, I will be talking about my personal interest in avatars, actually. I've done a bit of a research lately about like how people use avatars and how we can connect understanding about the persona of the avatars and connect them with like the commerce, because I have an e-commerce background as well, marketplace. And so I got really curious about this. I did like different research, and I am super excited to share them in AWE.
Excellent. And you'll be there physically. So other attendees for AWE should be looking for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come look for me, guys.
All right. Thank you again, Sonya, and have a great night, everyone.
Bye, guys.